Hello there. Welcome to a special bonus episode of Talking Smack, where this is the long rumored bonus episode. It's only taken me 11 weeks to get to editing this. This is way back from our What You Doing 14. And Alex and Matt had gotten into a pretty heated discussion about access journalism versus journalistic integrity. And it led to a really interesting discussion that, for the sake of trying to keep the episode brief as What You Doings are, this got cut out, but it's a really good conversation that I think a lot of people really, or our listeners would really appreciate, and just hearing what Alex and Matt had to say with each other throughout this discussion. So please enjoy, and there's not going to be an outro. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice, as always. But until then, we will see you on Wednesday with our upcoming Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender movie review. Have a great one.
It's one of those games that has driven a lot of discourse because, there's a lot of like good faith criticism, which is good and fine. That is like, I think this game didn't hit for me for reasons XYZ. I didn't like the music or whatever. And then it's a kind of a twee game starring a female character. So it's obviously become a boogeyman for like all of the worst people on X, the everything app, So it's just been really interesting to play this like relatively innocuous game that is very clear, like a passion project, personal story from this one guy who's an Australian developer, I believe. And to see a bunch of people act like it's the end of civilization because there's a lady listening to indie music in a game or something.
I think you got to give some more credit to the criticism than that, because you've said indie repeatedly. This is released by Annapurna, which is a massive studio that has a lot of backing. They're backed by the Ellisons. It's their Ellison Studios, and also it's like saying the Russo brothers made an indie film called Captain America: Civil War.
I don't think it's quite. I get what you're saying. I don't think it's quite like that.
Can I finish? Because it's not one indie developer; it is a massive studio, and they have all this licensed music, which costs a ton of money for all of these Devo band, all these big bands. And then most of the critical reviewers were sent a copy ahead of time, and they were sent CD players with the CD of all the music to listen to before they got their license opened. They could open their review license.
Well, my point is when I'm saying indie developer, they have the backing of a large publisher. I'll grant you that. But the development team is like two guys. Like there's money there. So when you say like it's the Russo brothers making Captain America, like no, it fucking isn't. Like they have the money. I'll grant you that. But it's like a 2-person team that has signed up with a big publisher. So like, okay, indie is maybe not the right way to do it, but it is like, it's not like a massive development team of 10,000 people or whatever, or 1,000 people or whatever,
Yeah, but when you have that kind of money, and I mean, if you want to say like the Russo brothers came up with the story and they're like, hey, can we have all these characters? Can we have these special effects? Can we have this money for the backing? Can we license all these songs? We want to shoot in these locations. It's very similar that it's a little disingenuous to talk about how small the team is when you have something like Balatro, or you have something like Vampire Survivors, or Phasmophobia, which is 1 to 3 people who are developers doing this on their own time without backing, releasing their product. But when you bring in this amount of money and this studio that can buy you access, can buy you revenue, can buy you the license for the music that you want, can send critics personalized CD players with CDs with the thing saying, hey, this is a little token from us. Would you mind reviewing our game? You are doing access journalism, to promote this product. So I'm not saying it's not a good game. I haven't played it yet. I'm excited to play it. Josh got it for me for my birthday. I am going to play it on my own, but there is a little bit of disingenuousness pushing it as this is a little indie thing I stumbled across. It's like, well, when 200 of the top critics all got sent access to it with personalized gifts, that should be acknowledged.
Sure, I guess what I
also take away from the review.
Hold on. No, that's insane. Hold on. That the assumption that a review is suspect because maybe the developer sent them something is I don't agree with that whatsoever. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen ever, but
But
the idea
okay,
that the idea that Annapurna is like buying good reviews is, to be frank, it is bullshit. Like, maybe
okay.
maybe
So why is Marvel reviews for their movies and Disney reviews, why have they gone down since they stopped flying influencers out
I don't
to the premiere?
I don't
sit
give a
next
shit
to it?
about that. I'm not talking about Marvel right now. My question to
No, it's
you
the exact
is,
same thing. Yes.
you started this. This has gotten very weird to me. You started this by saying you can't discount the criticism. I wasn't discounting the criticism. The stuff I was talking about was like insane right-wing shitheads who see a lady in a game and go, I'm so upset, or think that because a game is getting good reviews, that it's something that is being astroturfed. And like, I just don't think, I think that is like conspiracy level thinking, where that is, I'm not saying that the um, publisher isn't trying to do this, but
Yeah.
the idea that like every single good review out there is because somebody sent them a cool thing, like, as someone who works in journalism, not that level of journalism, but someone who follows a lot of this industry and has seen for years people just assuming good reviews for games they don't like must be bought and sold. That is not that it never happens, but by and large, it's nonsense. It doesn't happen. Like, that is not, like, the person who it wrote it for IGN gave it a 10, which is maybe a little too glowing, but it's not like, wow, I wasn't going to give this game a good review, but they sent me a cool little trinket, so now I'm bought in. Like, the part of the discourse is that a bunch of people seem to think that someone is nefariously trying to push this as a big indie hit, whether you agree with indie or not. And I just don't think that's true.
Okay.
Well, what I was going to say is I think there's a little bit of a miscommunication because if I'm remembering correctly, which obviously in the edit we'll find out, Matt, I think you had said it's presented like an indie movie. I don't know that you'd deliberately said it was an indie project.
I probably, I
but
did say that,
was,
and I probably did refer to it as an indie game a couple times, because in the things I've heard is that it's a small team. But, you know, it is a fair cop that Annapurna is a big, quote unquote, indie gaming space. Like, it's like, it's sort of like Devolver, where they're a studio that puts out a lot of quote unquote indie games, but it's hard to say that they're an indie publisher, right? Because they're a huge thing with a lot of money behind it. So I will grant that. And if I misspoke, that's fine. And I wasn't trying to like get heated. I just like, that's a really frustrating discourse to me, where there's just a weird idea that gaming journalists are in on this AstroTurf push to like push this game. And it's not even like a game I'm like necessarily like 10 out of 10. It's great. It's beautiful. It's the best game ever. It's just like a very weird thing that happens sometimes, and I don't agree with it. So I'm not like trying to get up your ass or anything. I just was not sure what the relevance was for that line of questioning.
Well, you had mentioned the discourse around it.
Sure.
And part of the discourse around it is it does seem that there has been a deliberate attempt to buy favor with this by getting access. Now, I'm said I have been like, back when AMC used to do free movie like Mondays for early premieres for their Stubs members, I would go see a movie 1-2 weeks early. You know, I think the earliest was maybe 3 weeks for the King Arthur movie with Richard, the British guy, is like Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Heck, I still wear that hat mowing the lawn because it's a good hat and it has a symbol on it.
that was the Guy
Getting
Ritchie
something-
one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Guy Ritchie. Thank you. That's his name. Seeing something early, seeing something free before everyone else does draw more favor. It does do that. Now, what I'm saying about the Marvel thing, you said you don't care. It is the same thing. Marvel and Disney would fly out influencers specifically to the premiere, put them up in hotels. You're seeing it with the cast, and 2-3 weeks early, and all the reviews are glowing. Greatest movie ever, 15 stars. DC did the exact same thing, which is like, okay, which is why Josh and I would joke, okay, well, let's see what the word of mouth is actually the first weekend when the plebs get to see it. And then you get the real discourse. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying is that like, that's why I'm not discounting that it's not going to be a good game. Like I said, I'm excited to play it. I actually posted about it like a few months back. I looked through our stuff. It was like the character's name is Rockford, and it has a bunch of like 90s music. I'm excited. This is built for Josh and I to play and review. And I don't care that the lead character is a girl. I, however, do find it a little weird that the discourse is a small indie game, and it's like, well, where'd they get all the money for all the songs? Where'd they get this kind of backing to send these gifts to all these reviewers? That's why you have to disclose on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like, hey, they sent me a free review copy. This is what I think about it, but it's my unbiased opinion. It was great.
Here's what I would put to you, and this is maybe where my fundamental disagreement lies, right? Where like, I think there is probably, for some people, something to the excitement of seeing something early, right? I get that for sure. But I think when the assumption is that automatically leads to better outcomes for reviews, that might be true to some degree, but it also sort of undermines the concept of the review, like that. And I'm not talking about influencers here. I'm talking about people who have like worked some there's crossovers sometimes, but like people who work in what you would call games journalism, for better or worse, to the degree that that's still something that exists. That is like, that's the job, right? So like, is the argument that any review is suspect because they surely got it early or saw preview builds of it at events and things like that? I don't think so. And I absolutely think that Annapurna, who is whoever's footing the bill for this stuff, is trying to like get in good with people by sending them stuff. But that's also something that, not that this is an excuse. That's something that games publishers have been trying to do for ever, where it's like, oh, we're doing a preview event for Metal Gear Solid or whatever. The only way to do it is if we get you on a plane and fly to Japan or something. So it's like, that gets at an interesting thing because, and I think this is muddled by the influencer thing, because those, not to say that every games journalist is scrupulous or a paragon of ethics, but those people, at least at some outlets, have some degree of like ethical standard that they're professionally held to, arguably, ideally, which is not strictly true of influencers, where it's like, maybe I've got that, maybe I don't. I have to disclose it, but also I'm just someone who posts on the internet and then people send me stuff, and maybe that colors my opinion, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It's like a weird sticky thicket, and it's like a thing where something that happens all the time is like, here's a game that for some reason people have weird feelings about. Mixtape, some other game. People are upset about it, but it's getting all these good reviews. And it automatically, the discourse always shifts to, oh, they must be getting paid off for it, you know? And like, a lot of people who work in these industries who talk about this stuff say like, that doesn't happen. Like, we don't, and you know, there's cases where it happens occasionally. Like you see some examples, but I think a lot of people are like, if someone's getting paid to try to influence my review, it's not making its way to me, you know? So it's just a frustrating discourse to see. And if it came out more than maybe it should have, here, I apologize to you. But I think the thing that I was getting at before is like, you know, the Russos making Captain America is not the same thing as like two guys making a like more personal story themselves, right? Where like there's a degree to which one of those is part of a brand and one of those isn't. You see what I mean? Maybe it's not one to one, but anyway, I've gone on a long time about this and I didn't mean to, but it's just like a thing I think about a lot and I see all the time, and it like it just is a frustrating thing. Like Gamergate started because, and this is not me talking to you, Alex, necessarily, but just in general,
Yeah.
Gamergate started because a bunch of people assumed someone was doing something untoward to get favorable reviews, and it just didn't happen.
Well, okay. So I want to ask you, since a few weeks ago, since you say you're tapped in, what do you think of the discourse around Pragmata then?
Well, can you be more specific?
The discourse that Pragmata is a poor game because it shows a relationship between a guy and a parental caring for a girl.
Well, I've not played Pragmata, to be
And
admittedly. Go ahead.
and one of the big discourses around it was people were posting that this game shouldn't be made. She looks too adult, and that men do not have paternal feelings for anyone but their own breed. So anything that they've created. So this game is complete garbage.
I did not play Pragmata. I hear it's good and fine. I got some splash, like AoE damage from the discourse, and it was all absolutely fucking insane. Like, the idea that like this little girl character is somehow like, I don't know how to say it, but just like a lot of suggestions that the developers were like getting at some like very untoward sexual proclivities because their little girl character is barefoot, or like the stuff you were just saying, like all of that is insane. Something that you find, and I see this, if you just like put yourself into the water of just shit random people are saying about video games, comic books, movies, it is like the
Yeah.
most unhinged shit you will ever see in your life. It is like
Yeah.
insane.
That's why I was looking at that, because that discourse. I really want to play Pragmata. I'll probably get it when it's on sale. But I'm like, I don't have kids. My basically, when it came down to it, God said no.
Yeah.
And so I have friends who have kids, and I enjoy, when they invite me, hey, do you want to, like, because to hang out with people who have children, people assume that if you don't, that you don't want to hang around children. It's like, no, it's not that. Hey, invite me to your kid's thing. I will go to it. If you want, if it involves spending time with my friends, I'm going to be there. I will gladly come and give presents to you guys. Like a good friend of mine, they live in Madison. We play D&D a lot. I love seeing their kid, and I wrote a little children's book for her that my friend illustrated and published, which was great. So she has a copy of it. Apparently, it's one of her favorite bedtime stories. And I love playing games with her and stuff. And then by the time she goes to bed at 8:00, I'm like, dear God, I'm exhausted. The adults can finally have fun. But if there was a fire in that house, I would rescue her and let my friends burn first. And now you're trying to tell me that having any parental feelings because it's not my own seed is
Yep.
bullshit and I'm a
Yep,
pedophile?
it's insane.
Is so insane and pisses me off so much. And to see like all this discourse saying that like if you're a guy who plays game, then like so why are you attacking this game?
Yeah.
But you didn't attack The Last of Us for this.
Right. And
It's literally Cub and Wolf.
Yeah.
This game.
Yeah, and like
what is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's
and so that's the part that pisses me off with this discourse is like all these game journalists or influencers or whatever are attacking this game and saying that like men have no maternal feelings. And then to turn around and then say like, and then the discourse shifts to this other game to praise it. And anyone who hates it, who doesn't like it is like a xenophobe or whatever. I'm like, I don't understand game journalism, and I don't understand why I'm being attacked for liking games.
I would push back on that lightly, and here's where I would do that.
Yeah, I know it's coming from multiple directions. It's bullshit.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times, and it can depend on the discourse, right? Where when I'm talking about, say, for Mixtape, a lot of the stuff I was seeing from like essayists and journalists or commentators or whatever, right, is less about the stuff we kind of got into an argument about, and more stuff that's like, I didn't like this character, or the music didn't work for me, or the game did or did not hit on these metrics, right? And it was a similar thing with Pragmata, where like none of the weird shit that frustrates me is coming from at least where I follow, right? There's I'm sure there's websites for all kinds of people who can write whatever and say whatever they want, right? But it's like, that it's part of the thing, again, part of the muddying the waters, where I can theoretically point my camera at my face and say, if you like Pragmata, you're a pedophile if you don't have kids, theoretically blow up, and now suddenly I'm on like press lists and shit. It's just so fucking weird because, for me, I distinguish between like game journalists or like good commentary or whatever, and the influencers and other shit where all of the weird muck comes from, and sometimes it's hard to separate that, but it's one of those things where like this game and Pragmata and like Marathon and like all kinds of all kinds of other like games that are sort of like maybe the, for better or worse, correctly or incorrectly, the sort of online discourse is about how weird it is, or like how much it's failing, or like how much it sucks, where like the people I like hear talking about games on a professional level are like, these are great games, we like these games, and here's why. So it's like there's a very weird disconnect there.
Yeah, well, the thing with Marathon is I am not cheering one way or another for it to fail.
Yeah.
What pisses me off about Marathon is it's not a game for me. I am not an extraction looter. I tried, was it Darkest Days or Dungeon or some crap like that?
Yeah.
That had a version of that was medieval like a few years back. And I was like, this game is not for me. I do not want to do a PvE where I lose my shit. Sorry, PvP where I lose my shit. I'm not interested in that. I like Bungie's aesthetic and stuff like that. Obviously, I've played Destiny. What pisses me off about Marathon is that they killed Destiny to make Marathon. And
Right.
that's the thing that drives me nuts, is because I paid $100 last year for the season pass and all this crap to be released from June until, in theory, it should be June to June. And all I've got was a slight Star Wars ripoff, which they did with Star Wars approval because you get a lightsaber. It's badass. I love it. But there has not been a content drop since December. And it was supposed to be something we released like April, got pushed back for Marathon, and then May got pushed back. And now they're talking about maybe June or August for the next drop. And I'm like, because the resources are being put in the Marathon. That's the thing that pisses me off. It's like, my thing is like, don't blame Sony for what Bungie's doing. Bungie did this to themselves. There's a reason why Bungie was independent, got bought by Microsoft, went independent, got collaborated with EA, broke off, went independent, and then now Sony is finally grabbing the reins, going, guys, what are you doing? You're destroying your player base. Like Marathon could be, I wouldn't care if Marathon had 700 million players every single day. I don't care. I invested into Destiny, and I literally have paid you money, $100 every year for the last 5 years, and you're giving me nothing for it. That pisses me off.
Yeah, and admittedly, I wasn't trying to raise the Marathon question for, it was a point of discussion on our Discord a little while ago.
Yeah.
So much, and I understand your feelings. I can only speak so much to that, and even then, sort of like, in some levels, like I can't think of the word I'm trying to use. Like I haven't played either game. I played a little bit of Destiny and it wasn't for me, but I can't speak on that level necessarily. I only mean to say that like I don't think your feelings on that are necessarily out of step with a lot of people online, but a lot of people who who I follow who have played it are like, this game is fucking great. And it's like another one. It's all I only raise that in this with these other examples to say that there is like sometimes a weird disconnect between like what a lot of people who like play games professionally or like follow the gaming news professionally come to versus like what the mainstream discourse is. which is not
Oh, yeah,
necessarily
like
a good or bad thing. Like sometimes those people are ahead of the curve on some stuff. Not saying they are in these cases, but I always think back to like whatever year Demon Souls came out on the PS3, the
2009.
2009. The consensus was with a lot of people were like, this is a hard game. I don't get it. Like I don't understand this game. But like I think it was GameSpot or maybe it was IGN. I don't know. Gave it Game of the Year, and people were like, "What are you doing?" Like, and then a few years later, Dark Souls comes out, and then suddenly that's when it clicks for like people, right? So it's just like sometimes there's a weird
Yeah.
disconnect for whatever reason, and it's just
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of people who are mad at Sony because they got, what is it, Astrobot got Game of the Year, and they're like, "Oh, Sony obviously bought that from the Game of the
right,
Year."
right, right,
It's
right.
like, or maybe it was a really freaking great game. Like the Astrobot, like that came on my PS5, the demo version that they eventually made into a full game. I love that thing. I finished that thing like twice because it was a nostalgic joy rush to run through and collect all the different versions of the PlayStation and see
Yep,
their journey. It was great. And yeah, they turned Astrobot into a Mario clone. Good. More people should. Mario has perfected a strategy over the last 40 years of being awesome. Do it. But yeah, that is part of I think part of the problem with the game discourse is that there is a lot of intentionally muddied waters because the of the way that publishers and developers slide around between traditional gaming journalism, but influencers, but some people provide access, some people don't get access. You don't want to be was it I think IGN got punished a few years back because one of their journalists did something a developer didn't like,
yep,
so they stopped getting free game reviews. And it's like, well, that's literally access journalism, but at the exact same time I can understand why you wouldn't want to give that journalist access.
right.
But at the same time, what's going on, especially since games are getting more expensive, they're still for entertainment the best ROI you can have. Like let me see, I've have 2,000 hours into Destiny. I've spent $500, so that's what, $4 an hour. That is a great ROI.
Yeah,
For return on investment. That is fantastic. Vampire Survivors, I'm up to 130 something hours. I've spent a total of $8.99 on that.
yep.
So what? That's 12. That's again a great ROI.
And
You're
I think it's something that comes up. I think
yeah,
in any enthusiast press, right, where like it's in the name, where like the people who are covering it, who are interested in it, are people who care about the thing as fans on some
yeah,
level. And it's also a thing where um, you are the thing that you need, you are beholden to some outside entity to get the thing you need, right? Where like maybe that's
yeah,
game publishers, maybe that's a baseball team, maybe that's movie reviews, right? There's always I think there's always probably some friction where it's like, if Rockstar gets really pissed at us, we might not get GTA in time, and that's going to be a game that's
yeah,
going to drive a huge amount of traffic for us or whatever. Or they won't let us talk to the players if we write a negative story about the team or something, right? So I think that's always something that is a
yeah,
little weird that kind of comes in conflict with like the thing I think a lot of people are trying to do, which is like actual journalism and honest reviews. And sometimes,
yeah,
maybe it doesn't always happen the way it should.
yeah. Like, I give Justin Henson from the Movie Wire shit sometimes because like he'll like something. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, why is it that critics love this thing? And I watched it and I despised it. But then a few weeks ago, he gave Michael a good review when the critics were bashing it. And I was like, oh, your press pass is getting released, buddy. you know, which I trust Justin. I mean, he drinks a lot of bourbon, but I trust him for the most part. But every once in a while, it's like I can understand that every once in a while when like it seems like critics line up in a row and say this is great, and then you look at the audience score and it's completely inverse. Every once in a while, you do wonder like why, like what happened here, like
Yeah.
what made like. Did you guys get marching orders? Did you guys did somebody slide something in your thing saying, "Hey, listen, we're all owned by the super mega conglomerate," because a lot of these like Gamer Guide and Radar and a bunch of them are owned by one parental company. I think IGN is still independent. I think
I
maybe.
think so.
So every once in a while, it is like a little weird, and you do have to scratch your chin and go, "How did that happen?"
Yeah, and
I don't necessarily believe that you should be like, "Oh, they literally got sent paperwork
right.
to say, hey, give us a 10, give us a 9, or you're fired." But my thing is like, I want to feel like the reviews that I'm reading are honest, and I want to trust the person that I'm getting the review from. So like so if Justin gives something a good review, because I know him and he is in the press corps or whatever, I trust him. It's kind of like Siskel and Ebert. You could trust them.
Yeah.
You felt like there was this trust. You didn't feel like there was an agenda with, other than the fact that they hated 80s slasher films. Like, you should look at some of the old reviews of 80s slasher films. They hated them.
They hated Alien. I remember looking
Yes.
up that review. They're just like, it's a slasher film set in space. What the fuck is this? It's so stupid.
Yeah, they also did not like The Thing.
Whack. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's probably the best thing that I could, I think that's especially now when everything's so personality driven, right? Where you like kind of follow writers and creators rather than like outlets, especially with gaming press where like so much of it has been like decimated, right? I've found useful to here's a few people that I know who's maybe I don't fully agree with that, like their preferences or whatever, but I understand where they're coming from, and when they say something, I understand that it's coming from a pretty honest place. Like this is how it hit me, and I found that's been pretty useful to me. And those just partly because I've been following this stuff for ever. A lot of those guys just tend to be people who have been like in quote unquote gaming journalism outlets for years and years and years. Because like with the thing with the reviews that you were mentioning, that's when more for me it's like the inverse almost. Where like I don't necessarily go, oh, all the reviewers love it, it must be great. But when I see something like that where it's like the user review score is like insanely low, my first thought, having followed stuff on the internet as long as I have, is like, oh, for some weird reason, was review bombed, because that's a tactic now, right? Where it's like, oh, we decided we're mad at Brie Larson, so we're giving Captain Marvel, we're gonna brigade the IMDb page for that movie, right? So like now suddenly the user score is significantly lower than whatever maybe it's not. I haven't looked at that Metacritic, but that's the kind of thing that happens where this is woke, so now we're gonna review bomb it. So it's like one of those things where on both sides, maybe the Metacritic is not, for me at least, a useful metric, because I'm like, for me, that disparity, one way or another, I can't say for sure it tells me anything at all.
I think user score review bombing is a reactionary tactic to the belief that critics astroturf thing. And it is hard sometimes to not believe that when you look at like some movies or video games and you go like, how does this work?
Sure.
Like, and especially like, oh man, my friend Larry and I, we go watch horror movies. We're going to go see Obsession this weekend, but he got a stomach bug, so we didn't. But we've gone to some A20, which is why I have an issue with A24 movies. Is we've gone to some A24 films because we look at it like, hey, what's the Rotten Tomato? It's like 99% for They Come at Night or something like that, and the trailers make it look like this intense horror film. And we go sit there, and it's actually about this family hiding in like a cabin, and it turns out there's some kind of illness that may or may not be out there. And after an hour 40 minutes, we're just like, what the hell was this? And you go home and you look at the critic score, the user score, and you see like users 42, critics 95. And it's like, how the hell do critics think this was a good movie? Especially when you can feel misled over trailers.
Yeah.
Like there's been a few lawsuits over trailers that have come out. Like one of them was about, I forget.
One of the Marvel ones, I think.
That
right?
Beatles movie
or the Beatles movie too, right?
There was the Beatles.
There was yesterday.
A Beatles movie. Yep. They settled that one, which I was like, man, that should have gone to trial. But I felt in some ways that Rogue One should have gotten sued because that first two trailers, 99% of that footage was junked because they had somebody come back in and refilm everything. So I can understand why some people would want to use champion a review bomb when you can feel misled by partying your hard-earned money.
Sure, but it does result in the same
Yeah.
thing, right? Where like,
Yeah.
to some degree, where it's hard for me to look at that disparity and say it to draw any conclusions from it, right? Where it's like one way or another, either people are responding to something they think is happening, and even then, maybe that is influencing how they score it, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I think there's concerns with Metacritic or aggregating scores like that to begin with. Not to say they're not useful, but there's all kinds of ways it can be. It doesn't necessarily draw it's hard to create an actual conclusion from it. It's just a data point.
Well, yeah, especially since Metacritic is used by a lot of developers. That score is actually used for how they bonus their employees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's also fucked. Yeah.
I forget, some company came out because it leaked that a bunch of the developers were pissed because like they got like tiered bonus rankings. And the biggest bonus if like the game hit like a 90 with critics and a 90 with users, and it came in like 89 with critics or something like that. And so they missed out on the developers missed out on massive bonuses for the year.
Yeah. And that's a spot where, to the point of wondering about astroturfing, where I don't think it necessarily happens. And I think it's probably never coordinated, but if I'm writing a review and it has to have a numerical score, and I know that like if I give it a shittier review, it may cost a bunch of people their bonuses or their jobs. I could see a scenario where I may feel, at least momentarily, some pressure to make it sound a little better. I don't know, which is not to say that it happens, but I think that people are cognizant of the fact that is a thing that studios do.
Oh, if I was an independent reviewer, I would feel that. Like if I'm wavering between like a 6 or a 7, and I'm like, I mean, the game wasn't that bad compared to what I played earlier this week. Yeah, I guess this is a 7.
Yeah.
To not make that ratio drop a little bit more. Yeah. Which could be another thing that is that Cecil and Ebert talked about. Like, some reason why they gave some of their scores is they had I think 7 movies to watch a week, and that's their studio. And before they got their studio fully set up, they had to go see that in theaters. There's been travel time and all this other stuff, but then thankfully they talked about how all these movies were sent to their studio. And so that's still 7, 8 movies a week. That's still like 30 hours sitting in the chair. Then they have to do the write-ups for each one and all the stuff. And they have to film. They're like, there's just movies that like we would just be like, it would be the middle of the road movie, and we would just both give it no's, even though it's fine.
Yeah, maybe it's the last movie you see in a week or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then we had like 7 movies in a row that are rom-coms that we're all giving mixed grades to, and all of a sudden we get an intense police drama that's not very good, but we're like, thank God, something different.
Yep.
And they give it 2 thumbs up. It's not an easy process to get through, especially when you're trying to review a game. I mean, I can understand why Mixtape why critics would probably like it. It's a nostalgia trip. It's from 2 small people. They can actually finish the game because they have like maybe up to 7 hours that they can like review a game. They can actually finish it, maybe even finish it twice.
Right.
So you got to take these things into allotment. You can't just I think a lot of the fans out there who are getting pissed off about it need to take into account that just because a game is rated like by seemingly the majority of critics a 9 or 10 out of 10 game and has like a Metacritic score of like 95 or some crap, maybe the highest rated game of the year, that's the highest rated game in that genre.
Sure.
That doesn't necessarily mean that what else comes out this year? Oh,
GTA comes out this year. Like that's gonna win every award ever. So it's anyone who's freaking out about it.
Oh yeah. It's the big behemoth. Those people are going to be, that if they don't give it a 10 out of 10, fans are going to be pissed at them.
Yeah.
We've been waiting 15 years for this beast.
I mean, to what we were what this whole conversation has turned into, there are going to be people that there are people that are already pissed off at GTA 6 because they have women that look normal.
Right.
there's a lead female character in this game that you can play as, and she's not like a 48, 24, 36 figure. Like there's people are freaking out about that shit because like they don't want to play as a normal looking woman or a woman that they deem as quote unquote fat.
Well,
They want to play as the sexy woman and or they want to play as the man and bang the sexy
that's
woman.
part of it
like,
too,
that's
is
where
like
they draw the line.
with the mixtape thing, like it's so tough, right? Because like to whatever degree that the thing you're talking about, where maybe there is like some reason, legitimate, or even if you just come to that thought rationally, even if it's not true, it is so muddled by like a bunch of bad faith bullshit, right? Like maybe there is reason to think, oh, did the thing where they sent all these reviewers and influencers this little gift, would that have an influence on reviews? Reasonable thing to think, but it balloons so much where like suddenly it's one bit in a din of a bunch of like rage bait peddlers who like make their money getting people riled up, and now it's suddenly this is something that is a coordinated push, right? Where it's like,
It's a psyop meant to make you feel like less of a man, so therefore it's
or
it's
even
the
just to
worst
like
thing
some,
ever.
even just to like some woke bullshit, right? Like the thing they're all trying to make popular is some woke bullshit, and like that, I think is most likely not what's happening. But if some influencer felt more warmly on the game because they got a box of a bunch of shit, yeah, I could see that happening, you know? So I don't know. It's just like discourse is so fucking poisoned. And I think a lot of people with those reviews they see them as validating, right? So it's like if they play a game and they like it, and or they really become attached to it, like Mixtape is the kind of game where I like it, but I also can see people like their whole personality becomes about this game. For some people, if they aggressively hate it for whatever reason, or they really love it, then anything that goes counter to that, it's not just like a data point. It's not just like, okay, this person wrote a piece of criticism that I don't agree with or didn't think was very good. This is like a personal insult. And it's just one of those ways that like discourse is so fucked about anything, right? And, I know we've been going on this for a long time. Theoretically, Josh has something else to say at some point.
Something else. There
Yeah,
you go.
right. This is sort of one of the things that I was talking about, and not to bring Discord business up to here, but when we were talking about Marathon, that was one of the things that I was thinking about, right? Where it's like the numbers are the numbers, and those are useful data points. And this is not to argue against you or anything. Ultimately, all this stuff is still art, right? It's still an artistic work, and that's the fundamental thing. Where like the Metacritic scores or player numbers or sales or whatever else, those are things I think are useful, box office numbers, TV ratings, whatever. But ultimately, like the thing that matters is like, did you like the fucking thing you played or watched or whatever, right? Or, maybe that's different with the Marathon example because that's an online game that is ever changing and you're paying money for it and all that stuff. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where like discourse is so fucked in so many different ways that I think people, again, not you,
I mean,
lose
that's
track of like it's a video game that's made to tell a story. Let's go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, and not to make light of what you're just talking about. Like what you're talking about is kind of the reason why we have our binary rating system of must see or pass.
Yeah.
Like it's why I choose to like just say, oh, this is a must see, must play, must watch, whatever, or it's a pass. Because if you put it on a scale, and like this goes back to my GameStop days as well, where we used to get graded on a scale of 1 to 10 in our ratings, and GameStop would be like, well, you didn't get a 9 or a 10, so you must fucking suck.
Yeah.
You're terrible at your job. We're going to send you to a seminar to go get fixed. And if it was if it was like a 1 to 5 scale, all of a sudden, all of that discourse completely changes. And I think that's a big part of a lot of the gaming discourse as well. And I think like Game Informer / GameStop is kind of responsible for a lot of this as well, is because they had adopted like the American grade school grading system where 7 is average, but if you're using a 1 to 10 scale, 5 should be average. And anything else above a 5 is going into levels of above average to great. But because for whatever reason, like the 10 scale has become the thing we use, it changes people's perception on how things should be graded or what that grade entails and what it actually means. And I think that's a like going way back to like the root of the problem, and nothing's going to change what has been going on for decades at this point in gaming journalism. But I think that to what you're saying, Matt, is kind of a big part of where a lot of this rage bait and discourse comes from, is from a lack of awareness of like what our grading scale actually means, because now all we care about is clicks, because all of a sudden we gave this game a 7 when if we were using a legitimate 1 to 10 scale and it should actually be a 5. Now all of a sudden we've got a bunch of people getting pissed off that we're giving this shitty game a 7 or this very average game a 7 because they're interpreting that 7 to mean something different than what it should actually
When you see
be.
in the opposite too, where like there's cases where, I don't know, a big Sony game like Uncharted or Last of Us comes out, some outlet gives it a 9. Fantastic score. People are mad because they think it deserves a 10, right? We're like,
and on the other hand, you have Skyward Sword, which came out. It's not a great game, especially when it was originally released on the Wii, and everyone was giving it 10s.
Josh, I already yelled at Alex. I can't yell at you too, okay?
Skyward Sword is not a 10 game. I'm sorry. It did not change the industry. It did not take the world by storm like an Expedition 33 or Breath of the Wild.
Oh, well, now who's showing their preferences? I rest my case.
You?
No, yeah. Oh, the games you're judging the industry by are the ones you like? Oh, interesting.
Well, I'm saying like Breath of the Wild and
now
Expedition
Josh is yelling
33
at
are
me.
games I would
Now
not
Josh is yelling at me.
those are not games that I would normally connect with.
Yeah.
And yet somehow they're that good that I can connect with them. That's my point. But everything is subjective as well. Like that is what a lot of this that we've been talking about is about. But the shitheads can just like fuck right off, really. The people who are afraid of the quote unquote woke.
Yeah, and ultimately I'll just say the thing I was really getting at with all this. I cannot wait to see this episode coming in at a crisp 1 hour after all the editing.
I might cut this part out and release it as like a bonus episode.
It can be really difficult to separate signal from noise, right? And like it's just, don't get too wound up in like any given. It's if someone writes a review that you think sucks, then who gives a shit? They're just some shithead, Even if they're good at their job, they're just somebody, who cares? Sorry.
They got paid off.
Yeah, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Not everything is a right-wing dog whistle, and not every childless man is a pedophile.
Right. Yeah.
And not every Zelda game is a 10.
Although many things are right-wing dog whistles, and many unmarried men are pedophiles. No, don't. That part was a joke.
The last thing I'll say on this is
this is like the 5th time one of us. I probably have at least 2 more before we're done.
I haven't chimed in a lot in the last like 30 minutes. Okay, so
poor Josh is just like, oh god damn it, or Alex and Matt talking, or wait, we're actually having a legitimate conversation. This is nice.
Yeah.
No, legitimately, like I think you guys were having a very productive conversation, which is why I
actually really
feel the need to chime in. What I will say about Pragmata is I think it's a very brave game, because making a child a main character in a game, a legitimate like small child, is not very good for like production quality. That child is terrifying, and it takes a lot of balls to make a child like a continuous thing on screen.
Yeah.
So like I give them props. I don't care.
I don't think there's anything sexually devious about her not wearing shoes, but it seems like it's kind of dangerous. They're like shooting robots and stuff, like there's shrapnel. Put on some shoes,
Well, she's a robot girl for one. But two,
spoilers.
It's a Japanese thing, because like Kojami also, like, so many of his characters don't wear shoes.
Yeah, that's true.
Kojima,
yeah.
Kojima.
Okay,
yeah. That's just his pet name, Kojami.
Sorry, yeah, Kojima.